Hello. 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 Okay, I'm glad I have your attention now. This is the very first episode of season 6 of Just a Breezy Chat. Today, we're going to be talking about one of my personal topics that I struggle with a lot, and that is hyper independence. Before I dive into today's episode, if you're new here, hit that like button or that bell for notifications. So, please subscribe, help a girl out. If we get to 100 subscribers, I will be doing a giveaway to a random follower or a random subscriber. You can find me on my Instagram page, um, Breezyville YouTube, um, YT channel _23, and just a breezy chat pod. Okay. With that being said, why don't we talk about what exactly is hyper independence? Well, this is basically when someone tries to this is basically when someone is completely independent in all situations, even when it may not be helpful or if they need support. It's often a coping mechanism that develops as a result of trauma such as abuse, neglect, loss, and other adverse events. So, what about when a person is hyper independent? Well, this can lead to many challenges, not only in a relationship, but also for mental health and well being as well. What are some causes of the of hyperindependence? This often comes from various forms of trauma. Whenever a person is hyper independent, it can stem from previous experience, such as childhood trauma, neglect, or abuse that can lead them to feel unsafe. Is it good or bad? Well, that just depends on who you ask. Um, Being independent is a very great thing. Do not get me wrong on that. I am very much an independent person, hyper independent to be exact, but hyperindependence can be very negative on a person's relationship and well being. When a person is hyperindependent, it can impact things like trust and communication in a relationship, and it can also keep a person from reaching out for help whenever they need it. Individuals who are hyperindependent may carry a lot of weight on their shoulders because they feel like we can't really have anybody to trust or rely on but ourselves. Um, Here's something note that if a person is hyper independent, it is important to get to the underlying cause of why they feel, think, or act the way they do. Um, and learn the ways to cope and restructure their beliefs. So, what about the benefits of hyper independence? Well, one of the benefits is that in some cases it serves as a way for an individual to protect themselves from keeping themselves safe and keep themselves safe. And if we're in a relationship that is unhealthy or unsafe, being hyper independent may help us disconnect from them and create our own space. However, even in some cases, it's important for the hyper independent individual to know that they are not only they are not alone, and there are people out there who are willing to help and support them. Here's some things to note: navigating, you're not alone. What are some examples of hyperindependence? Well, a person wants to be completely reliant on themselves and does not want to ask for help or depend on anyone. For example, a person may have no desire to form any connection or relations with others, and may live alone, go to work, and spend most of their alone time. Even if they are going through something mentally or facing a challenge in them, they will not ask you for help. It is also important to note that just because a person likes to spend time alone does not mean they are hyper independent. So, what are some signs of a hyper independent person? There is mistrust in others, the need to be constantly perfect, avoiding dependence on others, yeah, little to no close relationships, not wanting to ask for help, anxiety and depression, taking on too many responsibilities, stress and burnout, difficulties in relationships. So, are you a hyper independent person? While being independent is great and normal part of transitioning into adulthood, it's amazing. But just because someone lives alone, likes to spend time alone, and may not be in a relationship doesn't mean they are hyper independent. They may mean like once says, I hate people. But hey, imagine though once Swanson had his own podcast. Can you imagine that? I think I will listen to that, honestly. But anyway, if you feel that you do show signs of hyper independence, or if you have past traumas that you have not really addressed, it is important to reach out for help, even if it's directly to your healthcare provider or mental health professional. Um, what about healing? Well, can you be in can you be codependent and hyper dependent independent? Often a person if it is codependent, they have a hard time being independent. Individuals in a codependent relationship can commonly feel that they either have to depend on fully their responsibilities or other person in a relationship. This kind of thing can make it hard for a person in a codependent relationship to get to the unhealthy relationship building um in healthy relationship buildings. So, what are some things to know if you're dating someone who's very hyper independent? One thing to know is giving us space and time when we need it. Not taking things personally. Have clear and open communication. Be patient and try to learn more about the other person. Learn how to navigate and address underlying cause. Go to therapy individually or together. How does being hyper independent ruin a relationship? Well, being independent is a great thing and is often having your own time, identity, and purpose in a relationship is important. However, hyper independence in a relationship can lead to challenges such as emotional distance, lack of communication, lack of trust, and other problems. Sometimes when a person is hyper independent in a relationship, they might be emotionally unavailable, causing people to causing both people to feel disconnected and find it hard to build their relationships. Going to the root of hyperindependence can involve therapy. CBT is one of the most common forms of psychotherapy and is used to help individuals with a wide range of different mental health conditions that go to the root cause of all their issues and learn new ways to cope and reconstruct their thoughts and behaviors. So, what are other ways to manage your hyper independence outside of therapy? Practicing self care, learning how to be vulnerable, self reflection. And individuals who are hyper independent often don't want to ask for help or feel like they can't. If you are a loved one or hyper independent, I know that it's going to be okay. And just ask for help, and there is support for you and people that you can trust. So I'm going to end this episode with a quote, and it goes, there is nothing glamorous about doing things alone. Hyperindependence is a trauma response. You are not a burden. You deserve to be loved by people and be taken care of, held, and the abundance, and you deserve to be told, I love you, and we care. Community is what we all need. Next episode, we're going to be talking about empaths. Oh gosh. I'm secretly an empath and I really hate it too. That's the sad part about all of this. But I will see y'all next time. Y'all have a fabulous day and a great and try to enjoy the rest of the summer. I'm just waiting for spooky season to get here.